What is going on, Dork Daily? It is your resident Delco Dork Gabe Riberio, back with another video. What's something we all have in common? We love movies, right? But every time you see a movie in theaters or on TV, and then you get word there's an alternate version of it, everybody's so curious to see that alternate cut. There's been so many over the years, especially with the big hubbub when they released the Snyder cut. People were adamant about seeing that 4-hour version of that. There's so many different cuts out there, but what are some of my favorite alternate cuts? Well, that's what we're going to get into today. These are my top 5 favorite alternate cuts of movies. Let's get into it, shall we? Now, before I say anything, this is going to be obvious spoilers for both the theatrical and alternate cut of the movie. So, if you have not seen said movie, probably check it out, because that's a good recommendation from the G-Man. Both versions, I would highly recommend. But, we're going to talk about the alternate ones. Spoilers ahead. Starting off at number 5, Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, the producer's cut. Now, I distinctly remember this years ago being bootleg copied on YouTube, which you can't get away with now, and on DVD. You have to find a rough cut of this, and they finally released it on Blu-ray, so I was very much stoked to see it in good quality. It is much different than theatrical. A good chunk of the movie stays the same, but the thing that I appreciate about alternate cuts is it's not just an extended version with a couple deleted scenes. Tonally, there's a lot different in this version. The opening has a little bit more leading up to Jamie Lloyd in the hospital after she's abducted by the man in black, and you find out that she's been impregnated with the baby. From there, you get to that scene where Michael is in the barn with her, and he just stabs her and leaves her there. So Jamie Lloyd is not dead yet, instead of that Thresher kill. From here, we get a lot more of the lore behind the Cult of Thorn, and it is a legitimate cult in this movie. So there's some very convoluted stuff with about how the constellations show up and a bunch of runes and what they mean in terms of the lore and what they can do to stop the Curse of Thorn. There's a lot more with Dr. Wynn and the people who are working under him to pass the Thorn off to. It gets a little confusing here because I think they wanted to pass it off to Danny or maybe the baby. Michael has served his purpose. But for the last 15 minutes of this, you see Tommy Doyle, yes, young Paul Rudd, infiltrate them while Dr. Loomis wants to get under the skin of Dr. Wynn, finding out that he's the one responsible for everything that's gone down with Michael, and he is the real villain. The ending's a little weird because, and I think this is the issue they ran into, because neither cut is a good launching point to H2O. I guess they thought, just give it a shot. If it took off, the theatrical cut is more of a straightforward slasher. This has a lot more lore, as I say. It is a little weird that Michael is stopped in his tracks with a lineup of runes that Tommy has for him. And then when Michael is found by Dr. Loomis, it's actually Wynn, and they switch bodies or switch clothes, I should say, with the man in black. And they pass the Thorn curse on to Dr. Loomis. That's a ballsy gamble there, considering the man was in his 70s. And when they were deciding to do reshoots for the theatrical cut, he had passed away. So you can't really follow up with that. Otherwise, I still think it's an interesting enough version. I do appreciate the theatrical just a tad more because I think they worked with some color timing to make it look more fall, and it definitely feels more 90s with the Halloween themes sounding a lot more electronic guitars. Otherwise, though, pretty good cut. Number 4, and this is going to ruffle some feathers, but I'm going to stand up for this movie. No, it's not the Alien quadrilogy, but it is involved in this quadrilogy. Alien 3, the assembly cut, not the director's cut, because, as it has been stated numerous times, if you hate Alien 3, don't worry, you don't hate it nearly as much as David Fincher. He has gone on record about how much of a horrible experience he had making this movie, and somehow I still think what he brings to it shines through. I know a lot of people are pissed, because no matter what cut, Hicks and Newt are dead, so there goes your happy ending from Aliens. And trust me, Aliens is my favorite movie of all time. So those are some big shoes to fill, but they had to make that decision. They could have kept them around, but as you guys know, spoiler, in the theatrical cut of Alien 3, Ripley sacrifices herself once you know she's impregnated. I want to say this right off, before I go deep diving into what is different in the assembly cut. I know people love that happy ending from Aliens, but if you just looked at Alien through Alien 3 as a self-isolated, tragic story of Ripley, I think it pulls it off really well. Sometimes you have the reverse of the happy ending. Look at Romeo and Juliet, one of the most popular tragedies of all time. Sometimes tragedies have to happen. You did the reverse. You had your happy ending in the second act, and this is finally well, at the time, it was going to be the last time you'd ever see Sigourney Weaver play Ripley, and we kind of do. I like Resurrection, but that's a different story. It's its own thing. Now, if you want to talk about differences from this, there's a whole extended opening that is different from the theatrical, where Ripley's EEV washes up on shore, and there's some really good shots, and it's actually Clemens who finds her on the beach and then tells them to check the EEV. And I think that helps further build the relationship that Ripley has with him in the movie. Also, as most of you may or may not know, the birthing scene of the alien in this is not from a dog, which I think a lot more people would appreciate, because I don't like seeing dogs die in movies either. But if it's alien instead of human, I'm willing to accept it. But this time it comes out of an ox, which they use earlier in that scene that I mentioned to bring the EEV into the colony, the prison, I should say. A lot of the stuff plays out similarly, but there is a whole extended sequence when Ripley is trying to work with the prisoners to get the alien trapped in the toxic waste containment, and there's a big extended sequence with like flames going everywhere and people jumping out of rafters. Actually, one of the prisoners who wanted to have his own way with Ripley ends up being the sacrificial lamb for them to trap it, only to follow up on that prisoner Gallic, who they thought killed some of the prisoners earlier, Paul McGann, the 8th Doctor, and he's also on Luther, good actor. He goes a little nuts because he's obsessed with it, and he's the reason the alien gets back out. Otherwise, I mean, you get a little bit more with the prisoners, and there's a better tone with this movie having an extra 30-minute runtime, to where these prisoners who are on, their last, facing down mortality, their faith is something that I feel like is guiding them to when they're going to meet their maker. The only major difference here at the end is that the chestburster doesn't come out of Ripley. It's not a good effect. She just falls in. But I think they got word that Terminator 2 had a similar ending, so they did reshoot it so that the chestburster could come out, and I think that is a better addition than the theatrical. I think it's great to see those two in tandem going together, because you thought at the time, before they threw money at Sigourney Weaver, that would be the end. And I will tell you right now, controversial opinion, everybody always says which movie is the best movie after the first two. It's Alien 3, The Assembly Cut. My humble opinion. Resurrection's fine. I liked Prometheus, but I don't like the lore that has come out of this that we have to accept now in future Alien movies that predates Alien. I'm sorry, if you just give me this isolated, tragic trilogy of Ripley, I think it is executed really well. And it's my third favorite Alien movie. But that's just what I think, and that's only number 4. Number 3 is Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut. I'm not going to go as in depth with some of the changes that are more significant in this version, because I'm going to do a future video about that. Be on the lookout for that in the future. Quick story. Richard Donner was filming Superman and Superman 2 at the same time. It was like an 18-month shoot. After the first movie got released, he got fired. They brought on Richard Lester for the theatrical cut of Superman 2. His is a lot sillier. The things that I appreciate about this cut, keep it short and sweet. Much better interactions with Clark and Lois, where she's trying to figure out his identity. Zodnon and Ursa are played to be much more serious. There's more scenes with Gene Hackman. They get restored scenes with Marlon Brando, and that iconic John Williams score is back. I'm just going to leave it at that. There are so many more things that I want to get into when I talk about Superman 2, the Donner cut, in a larger context. Be on the lookout for that video, but for now, it's making my number 3. Number 2 is Little Shop of Horrors. This is my favorite musical and always will be. I remember seeing the theatrical cut of this years and years and years ago. And then I ultimately did the stage musical. So it came around full circle. When they screened this for a test audience, the director's cut that is, they were a little upset because I guess they were expecting a happy ending, which is not the case in the musical. If you're familiar with it, don't worry, I'll get into it in a second. And Frank Oz's explanation is because, spoilers, Seymour and Audrey get killed, and it's a little bit of a bleak ending. And that is staged in the musical, I guess because you're not as invested when you see a play when you film someone and you can actually get all the emotion, raw emotion coming off their face. You're a lot more invested in these characters than you would be if you saw them rows and rows and rows away. I think that was Frank Oz's explanation. I can't blame him, because who wants to see Rick Moranis die in a movie? He's just a charm. But for those who didn't know the differences, it's pretty much the same movie up until supper time when Audrey 2 calls Audrey on the phone. There's a whole sequence where she gets bit and eaten. She has mortal wounds, and Seymour is crying, and once he feels like she's a lost cause and she's a goner, he feeds her to the plant. And because he's gotten so low, he shows up at the top of a building, ready to end it all, and he's interrupted by the great Paul Dooley in this version, playing salesman Patrick Barton, the role I played in the stage musical. Not gonna toot my own horn, but he's the one telling him that he's gonna get samples of the plant and it's gonna be spread worldwide. And Seymour is finally on to the fact that Audrey 2 wants to take over the world. So he wants to have a confrontation. We get the great song Mean Green Mother from Outer Space. Seymour ultimately gets done in by Audrey 2. He gets eaten. Audrey 2 is enjoying its meal. And then we see the street urchins introduce us to the song that ends up being the finale called Don't Feed the Plants, where all these giant Audrey 2s are just wrecking cities and it's badass. And there's a great shot where one is on top of the Statue of Liberty and it's just mugging, and then it bursts to the screen saying the end with a question mark. If the people in the test audience didn't like that, I don't know why. It's still great. But the theatrical cut, as you know, Seymour gets Audrey out of Audrey 2's mouth in time, and they're going to sing a reprise of Suddenly Seymour. And they're interrupted by the not-so-great younger Belushi, sorry, Jim, as Patrick Barton. And that's where Seymour gets the idea. After Mean Green Mother, he just electrocutes them. He just electrocutes Audrey 2. He explodes. They have their cute little life with the picket fence in the yard and everything. And you see a little Audrey 2 wink, or not wink, but like gesture towards maybe it's not over. I'm torn between which version I like more. The original DVD actually had the director's cut ending intact, but it was in black and white, and it took forever for them to restore it on the Blu-ray. I would say in terms of a stage musical, I like that ending better. But I love the theatrical cut of the movie too. As much as I love the wreckage of the Audrey 2s in the city, I'm really invested in Seymour. Who wants to see Rick Moranis die? Not me. However, whenever I put on the movie, I'll usually put on one cut and then I'll go back and watch the other ending. So it's hard to choose. I love them both. But it's not my number one, and there's only one that makes that distinction. My number one favorite alternate cut is Army of Darkness. It's funny, if you're an Evil Dead fan, the chances are that you've probably seen these movies in reverse order, much like I did. And ironically, the version of Army of Darkness that I saw wasn't the theatrical that is, they're so mass-produced. It was a limited director's cut. If anybody remembers this copy, it was the one that looked like a bootleg paper bag. The movie is similar intact. It's 15 extra minutes, and some would say you don't need all it, but I am here for it. The effects might not be so great because I believe it's not compositing, but it's some kind of rear projection. Extra stuff with the little ashes that's fantastic. The clowning around that they do, one does a surf's up joke. Ash elbows one into a fire. It's hilarious stuff. There's some extended scenes. There are variations of dialogue that are changed ever so slightly.
Good. Bad. I'm the guy with the gun. I ain't that good.
There's a little bit more with the battle with Ash versus Evil Ash, counterattacks and seeing strategies. But I think the big thing that most people would know from this is the change of ending from the theatrical to the director's cut. Again, test audience was like, nah, sad ending. You've been following this Ash character for these 3 movies, and he's become so jaded that he's just a bumbling blowhard. So once he finally thinks he can go back home, he gets drops from the wise men, and he has to take as many as it takes to compensate for centuries that he's going to sleep and wake up in his time. But of course he takes too many, and he wakes up in a post-apocalyptic London, and he shrieks that he's slept too long and laughs maniacally. Great ending, especially for Ash's character, because they thought that would be a launching point where, as they would say, Ash would team up with robots to fight the Deadites. Cyborgs, if you will. Now, the theatrical cut ending, as most of you know, is Ash has actually gone back to his time, but the Deadites have followed there, and he's got like a cheesy kick-ass hero moment in S-Smart with his shotgun and saves the pretty girl and kisses her and says, "Hail to the king, baby." It's tough because I love both versions. I saw the director's cut first. I always love the theatrical. I can watch either time whenever I feel like it. I think the best combination for me is actually what I believe is considered to be the international/TV cut, which is also on the Blu-ray. Thank you, Shot Factory. Where I think you get a lot more of the evil Ashes and some more of the battle stuff with the theatrical ending. Both endings are great, but they ultimately went with the ending, I guess, that made the most sense leading up to Ash vs. Evil Dead, which, if you guys have not seen that show, It is so good. I'm glad that if we didn't get a proper Evil Dead 4, that's what you get, and it was still solid. I would say the international TV cut is my favorite. They're all great versions, but what is your favorite version of Army of Darkness? You guys have the same one as me? Have you seen them? Obviously, I've said having you spoilers. If you have not seen that ending where Ash sleeps too long, it's hilarious. But that's it for this list, guys. These are some of my favorite alternate cuts. What are some of your favorite alternate cuts? Leave some comments down below. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. From Dork Daily, this has been Gabe Riberio, and I'll see you guys next time.
Groovy.